I wanted a small college. I wanted to get away from Alabama. And somehow I saw a catalog about Baker. And I came to Baker and I found my place here, and I think I thrived here. And I've said before, you don't really appreciate the totality of it until you're away. And I think that's what happened with me. Freshman years when I met Denise, we actually married 6 years after we met in 1977. We've been married 48 years. So going to Baker was where I actually worked on the Orange, and I mainly did, news stories about what was happening on campus. And this was in the 70s, so you had the Vietnam War was still going on. The environmental movement was really getting a big start in the United States. And you had poverty, you had racism, you had civil rights. And I felt like most students were not paying enough attention to that, so I wrote this column for the Baker Orange about that. But I give Baker credit as well, because there were activities on campus that were devoted to, exploring what was going on in the rest of the world and protesting and acknowledging that things were not right, not just on this campus, but in the United States or the rest of the world. This is a photo of the Mungano organization. This is the 1972 yearbook, so this was probably taken either in 71 or 72, my freshman year. And these are all members of Mungano. Most of the black students were members of Mungano. We had about 50 or 60 at that time. And Mungano was an organization that was created. It's a black student union, is what it was at that time. And Mungano was very active. Not only was it active in terms of making sure that black students felt some cohesiveness, but we also felt like we had a political element to it as well. And we would bring speakers to campus to talk about racism and politics. We would do things like can drives for the people in Cairo, Illinois, where they were having an economic boycott. And we would do some things in Kansas City as well, or related to what was happening in Kansas City. We really could feel like you were an activist, even though you were on this small college in Baldwin City, Kansas. So Baker, this little Baker University, gave me the basic skills I needed to succeed as a journalist. So I give Baker credit for that. I tell people God works in ways that you never envision. And I was lucky enough, or good enough to work on a team with Ron Casey and Joey Kennedy, two other editorial writers, to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1991. So you could call that a legacy or call it what you will, but I feel like it was a blessing. This is not President Obama. This is U.S. Senator Barack Obama applying for the job of President of the United States and seeking the endorsement of the Philadelphia Inquirer in the Democratic primary that year. He was running against Hillary Clinton. The editorial board interviewed both Obama and Clinton. And this is during that interview where I'm sitting with him and asking him some very pointed questions about why he should be president. Who doesn't want a picture of themselves with Obama on the cover of their book? But also, it was very important for part of my experience as editorial page editor to be able to persuade the Inquirer, on a Republican publisher, to endorse Obama for president. I tell people that this story is a story about my life and about my career, but I also say it's a story about life, death, religion, and love. I began the book actually with a story about my brother, Calvin, who died of AIDS, and how I was informed about him having AIDS, not by my brother, but by a stranger who called me while I was working at the Baltimore Sun and said, "You don't know me, my name is Ricky Marquis, but you need to know that your brother has AIDS and he's dying." And of course, I immediately called Calvin and got confirmation of that and visited him later. And there are stories about others in my life who were important to my mother and father. I give their histories. I trace my father's history to the 1870s after the Civil War and my family on his side. My mother was an orphan, so can't trace her family back as far. So, I'm looking at civil rights in Birmingham, having grown up during that time, having been there when the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed and 4 little girls were killed. And one of the little girls went to my elementary school. Her mother was a teacher at my elementary school. Her father at that time was our milkman who delivered milk to our doors in the housing project where I grew up. So there's lots of elements to this book. And like I said, it's concise. I want it to be concise. But I travel a lot of ground. The book explores some of all of these things: religion, love, healthcare, politics. And I hope, again, if people read it, they'll find something that they can gravitate to, or maybe all of it. Baker, I've only been on campus a day, and it still seems like the Baker that I went to, of course, that it is a small place, and it's diverse as well. And in that diversity, and with the community, the small community, take the advantage of it to learn something about other people, concepts, ideas, and use that to make yourself a better person.